Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland, Majority Report. Joining us now, Hunter Dunn, National Press Coordinator for the 50501 movement, which is part of the No King's Day Coalition. Hunter is helping organize the downtown LA demonstration for October 18th. Hunter, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us on.
What's the 50501 movement?
Yeah, 5051 stands for 50 states, 50 protests, one movement. It started at the beginning of the second Trump administration. Everyday people were looking for some form of meaningful resistance against the Trump administration, and they weren't seeing it from their elected officials. So eventually, they decided to form one on their own. Basic idea was having a protest at the same time at the state capital of every state across the country to show the entire world that we, the American people, are against Trump's executive overreach. That quickly grew, not just every state capital, but major cities. We had about 20 to 50,000 people in total, but cut to a couple months later, there's over 5 million people at over 2,000 events around the entire country and the entire world.
And that being the No King's Day. And that was the first one that took place. I remember
on my wedding.
It was because we were
and
out.
Trump's birthday.
We were out, and we made it on that day. Or I think you were probably tied up with your wedding.
A little bit, yeah.
But
a little bit. Sorry, I couldn't make it last time.
I was representing for Emma.
Yeah.
So give us a sense of, like, I would imagine in the context of Los Angeles, there's even a greater intensity in the wake of all of these sort of like federal invasion of LA. But give us a sense of like what is the value of this? What's supposed to happen at these events, but after these events?
Yeah, absolutely, Sam. The first No Kings happened right after the invasion of LA started. I was there on June 6th, the day David Huerta got arrested after large ICE raids led to mass protests. Then we had a labor leader arrested. I was on the ground. I got tear gassed while passing out water, while talking to the National Lawyers Guild. For basically the week in the lead up to the first No Kings protest, it was the entire world standing with Los Angeles against Donald Trump's fascist invasion of our community. And now that occupation, that invasion has mostly been phased out, we're seeing Trump try the same thing in DC, in Memphis, and in more notably and more recently, Chicago and Portland, right? Trump claiming Portland's war ravaged. And then we cut to a live feed of Portland and it's people in giant inflatable frog costumes doing the electric slide.
Well,
right?
There was also nude bicyclists. So, and that apparently caused Mike Johnson.
He had to check in with his son.
Yeah.
At their heart rate monitor.
I'm sure he was watching that feed very closely. I'm sure hasn't looked away from the nude bicyclists the entire time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say up in Los Angeles. Yeah, I would say in Los Angeles, in the greater Los Angeles area, and the entirety of Southern California, the people who were hit the hardest by the first Trump occupation, for us, it's so important because we want to stand with those cities that stood with us. We want to stand with those communities that stood with us when Donald Trump attacked us, now that he's attacking them. No one's free until we're all free, right? I like to say we pass out these signs, at least at the LA events, where we're like, I'm here because, or I say No Kings because, and then there's a blank, and we give people Sharpies, and they write in their reasons. And almost everyone's got some reason relating to like their community, right? Like, I want to protect my family, I want to protect my neighbor, the tariffs, ICE throwing people in concentration camps. But we also see from people talking about we can't help other countries beat their fascists until we beat our own, right? Talking about Putin, talking about Netanyahu, talking about these other dictatorial regimes that are supporting Trump because it's the billionaires backing Trump and backing those other dictators that is causing so many of the problems we're facing today.
You mentioned Mike Johnson. I was trying to remember which Republican had spoken directly about No Kings recently, and it was him, where he claimed that the No Kings marches include a pro-Hamas wing, that it's filled with Antifa people, and that this is so organized, and that there's these liberal groups that are funding it. when they speak in those terms, I see them probably targeting organizations like Indivisible and other liberal groups that have, and left-wing groups that have come together on this front. Is that a concern for you guys as organizers, that the administration, and including with Ken Klippenstein's reporting about what the directive is to target left-wing groups? I believe it was the FBI. Is that something that you're prepared for, or something you're considering?
Well, first off, we're not just liberals. We're a broad tent. We include people who are left, right, and
Yes.
center. We include leftists. That's how I self-identify. But yes, absolutely. When I read the NSPM 7, I think that's what it's called, some of the stuff that the Trump administration is putting out, I was reading it, and I'm like, Antifa is not an organization. So they're talking about us. They're talking about Indivisible. They're talking about these different groups, some of them liberal, some of them leftist. And obviously that's a concern. I've spoken with organizers on the ground who have been, detained by DHS. I've spoken with people. I've received reports that they've asked about me. They've asked about other members of our movement in states that we're not from, which is, of course, horrifying to hear, but it's not new. Last time we were part of a deep state global conspiracy, I received a lot of anti-Semitic slurs, which is interesting because I'm not Jewish. They're like, George Soros is paying us. And now they can't decide whether or not it's the ineffective Dem leadership. We agree on that point. But the ineffective Dem leadership that wants to sell T-shirts at the National Mall, or if it's these radical terrorist pro-Hamas militants, right? You kind of got to pick a lie, Mike. The enemy can't be both weak and strong simultaneously. Well, unless you're a lying fascist, but we knew that one
unless you're
already.
Donald Trump, who's the weakest man ever and constantly the pettiest guy ever, but also the strong man. So,
But Hunter, let me so what I just want to hone in on this. Let's say we get a protest, and last time it was 5 million people across the country, and let's say it's 7 or 6 or 8. What then happens? Like, how is that people turning out there? What's the next step for organizers, for those people? Do they just wait until the next No Kings, or what?
Yeah, no, I appreciate getting the opportunity to talk about this, because when we talk about No Kings, so much of the coverage is just, woo, big event, and not, why are we doing this? Because it's not just Orange Man bad. It's so much more than just Orange Man bad. I think that there's 3 main reasons and 3 main results of a mass mobilization event like No Kings. Number 1 is the one that everyone talks about, community solidarity, right? Getting millions of people across the country and across the entire world. We have events in Western Europe, Mexico, Canada, India, I saw the other day. Really excited about that one. All those people standing up together against fascism, against tyranny, against Trump's regime, against the billionaires backing him, against Russell Vought. But that's just one thing. The other 2 things are education and recruitment is one of them. Getting people connected with groups on the ground that are doing work every day, whether it's direct action like anti-ICE demonstrations, anti-ICE patrols, community defense groups, Tesla takedowns, Fox takedowns, putting pressure on the pillars of support of this administration and getting those pillars to defect, like we saw a brigadier general for the National Guard do last week, right? Getting people involved in mutual aid, getting people involved in connecting their community, providing for people who are being hurt by these tariffs and by Trump destroying our economy. We're in borderline hide your neighbors territory, and we need to be ready for that once we get to that territory, right? So that's number 2. And number 3 is I want to go back to that invasion occupation points. Being on the ground, watching what federal law enforcement was doing in Los Angeles, trying to agitate, attacking people, throwing community leaders on the ground, hurting them, shooting people in the face with rubber bullets, right? I know people personally who were hit. I'm sure you all saw the video of them shooting at a journalist. I'm sure you guys saw what happened to the priest in Chicago. I'm sure you guys saw what happened to protesters in Portland. Those are massive issues, and those don't stop until you freak out the people doing them, until they realize that they don't have control and there's nothing they can do to regain control. When over 200,000 people, drone footage suggests close to 300,000 total in Los Angeles alone at one time. The emperor has no clothes. The occupation's defanged. They tried to bring in more National Guard. They tried to film propaganda videos in Los Angeles to regain control. But every time they took another step, it backfired because the game was already revealed. It was already over when they couldn't control that size of a crowd. And I want to do for Chicago and for Portland what we were able to do for Los Angeles, right? Getting people connected on the ground, getting people into those groups that are making a difference every day, and putting pressure on the regime to end those horrifying occupations before more people get harmed, or at least embarrassing them into moving their tactics down a couple notches.
And what about perhaps like, does this lead in any way to the, May 28th has been, May 1st, 2028 has been called for a national strike. We've heard that talk from Fain of the UAW, and he encouraged unions to have their contracts and sign those contracts so that they end on that day. How much down the road are you folks who are organizing these things thinking like, we've got these emails, we've got a way to contact people. Hopefully people, that's what the point of RSVPing is, and hopefully there are people there on the ground with
You don't need to RSVP for a protest. Whoever told you to that is lying to you. Okay. Like, you can if you want to.
Right.
Please use a burner. Please use a burner. Please don't use your real contact information.
Right.
Use a burner email for this. Do the same thing for anytime you donate to a Dem, because they'll send you a million scam emails, as Grant Plattner
100%.
talked about. But use a burner, please. Sorry. Keep going.
No. That's great advice. I think it's increasingly more important too. But we want a way where organizations can contact people, right? I mean, and I don't know if that's signing up or booths at some of these things or what. Like, how do we take these people who've been mobilized this one time and get them involved in things like mutual aid, or in like we need an emergency protest here, or people need to come defend their community against ICE there?
Yeah. So obviously a lot of those community networks are on the ground. They're using encrypted secret platforms that the administration can't really tap into. Mostly Signal, but there's other stuff too. I saw a great ad for this thing called Briar that I have to look into, but looks interesting as a way to help connect on the ground. So getting people to these events, like to these mass mobilizations, are important because it's really one of the best ways to get face time and meet with those groups that are doing that work that they're not going to be posting about publicly. When it comes to May 1st, 2028, I mean, I'm glad to see that the majority report knows ball. I figured you guys did, but I'm glad to see it in reality that you guys know what you're talking about, because most people don't know what I'm talking about, even in some of these spaces when I'm talking about 2028. We have to, at some point, right? Trump's going to do, Trump or his handlers or JD Vance, if Trump is no longer in the picture, are going to take an action to try to take permanent control of this country, right? They're going to try to rig elections. They're going to try to put something on more than just an occupation, but like an insurrection act, right? Full-on martial law everywhere. And we have to be ready for that. We have to be organized for that. America doesn't have the protesting muscle that places like France do, that places like clearly Nepal and Madagascar do, right? So we have to build up to that. We have to build those community networks now, so we're ready then. So we're ready to support May 1st, 2028. So we're ready to shut it down if in 2026 or 2028 they try to rig elections, and not just through state legislators switching up the districts, because that's what Prop 50 is for. If you're in
Right.
California, I'm in California, please vote yes on Prop 50. That might help save our democracy. But we have to be ready, and No Kings is a way to get ready. Going to a mass mobilization protest, making your voice heard, exercising the First Amendment in such large numbers that Trump can't possibly arrest all of you, that is very important. I don't want to understate that importance. But that's just one day. This isn't a sprint, this is a marathon. And we have to convince the people at those protests that this is a marathon, because they need to start training now so that they can run the whole race, so that we can save our country from fascism, and so that we can make the changes we have to make. Overturning Citizens United, ranked choice voting, universal healthcare, building more housing, universal childcare, anything on Zoran Mamdani's platform, just all of that, in my opinion, right? We need to make those changes so that once we get Trump out of office, once we get this regime out of office, we don't just get another Trump in 10 years.
Right. Hunter, where can people get information as to where their nearest No Kings protest is?
Yeah, just go to nokings.org and you can find your nearest No Kings protest. For 5051, you can go to the word 50, period, and then the word 1, 5050.1 to get more information on us. But there's tons of amazing organizations at the local and national level involved. I don't need you to join 5051. I need you to join something and do something next week, right? From who you meet at No Kings. Thanks.
We'll put links to both those. Hunter, thanks so much for your time. And I won't run into you in LA on the streets there, but maybe we'll see some people around here.
Spiritually.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Good luck. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.